In the madness, you got me good, baby. Keep on coming back to you. I know that you know it, 'cause you already messed it up. I know that you know it, 'cause you already messed it up. I think you're addicted to drama. It keeps you sleeping at night. Keep losing your shit on my problems. You know that something ain't right. Blaming me for causing your insanity. I'm pretty sure you're born like this. Oh, talk before you think it's your original touch, but I guess it kinda works on you. You got me paper thin, doing concrete face, stopping romance in the madness. You got me good, baby. Keep on coming back to you. I know that you know it, 'cause you already messed it up. You already messed it up. I know that you know it, 'cause you already messed it up. You got me paper thin, doing concrete things, drowning romance in the madness. Concrete things, diamond romance in the madness. You got me good, baby. Keep on coming back to you. I know that you know this, 'cause you already messed it up.
Hey guys, there he is. This Mr.
What's happening?
Sullivan himself. Guys, we're going to be previewing UFC 242 Khabib versus Poirier. We're going to talk about Cyborg going to Bellator. We're going to talk about Gustafsson wanting to maybe come back and fight Luke Rockhold. All that and much more. We'll be right back. It's going to be a kick-ass show. Boom, there it is, guys. Thanks for tuning into the program. This is the first time we're actually dual streaming on YouTube and Facebook. Do a little dual stream.
Oh shit, dual stream action. It's like that one time in high school.
Hey, I told you not to talk about that anymore, Tom. We talked about this, okay? Guys, thanks for tuning in so much. And it really means a lot to us. Thank you so much for the feedback from last week. We debuted the new logo. We got a lot of positive feedback from it. We thank you so much. And thanks once again to our amazing official Combat Insiders crew over here, Mr. Tom Shoaff.
Oh yeah, hey, of course, absolutely. Anything
We
I can do
appreciate
to help.
we appreciate him. We don't know what we do without Mr. Tom Shoaff. I really don't. But
Might have a better show.
no, it'd be a worse show, my friend. It'd be a worse show. Guys, quick shout out to again one of our sponsors, the sponsor that helps us power this stream, StreamYard. I talk about it all the time. If you look at the bottom, I have a referral link, StreamYard.com. Make sure you click on the referral link. That way we get a little bit of credit for it. Just a little bit.
Nice.
Just a little bit.
Nice.
That way they know we sent you. It'll help you all your streaming needs, whether you're streaming video games, whether you're doing crazy stuff like we do, or whatever your little heart desires. It's going to make it so much easier. It's going to make it so much more convenient and just streamline everything. That's why it's called StreamYard. Mr. Shoaff,
Yes, sir.
we got a big week ahead of us in the MMA world, my friend.
Indeed we do. Indeed we do.
Uh, before we get to UFC 242, before we get to that, we also have our friend from the UFC, Mr. Juan, the Kraken Adams. He's coming on with us too in
All right.
just a few minutes. But I tell you what, before we get to that, I kind of want to talk about Alexander Gustafsson. He retired, right? He lost the fight against John Jones. Talked
Mhm.
about retiring. Now he's talking about coming back again and wanting to face Luke Rockhold at 205. We saw what happened to Luke Rockhold at his light heavyweight debut.
Yeah.
And it didn't go so well for him.
Right.
Now
it doesn't make a lot of sense.
it doesn't make a lot of sense all the way around, right? Because you got obviously Gustafsson who retired and wants to come back. Like, okay, I get that. People retire and then want
Yeah.
to come back. All that happens all the time. I get that. But against specifically Luke Rockhold,
The guy who just got his jaw broken for the second time.
right? Like, what do you make about this?
Eh?
Like, do you think is anything to it? Do you think does it seem kind of? I don't know if cheap is the right word, but does it seem kind of cheap that he's kind of targeting Luke Rockhold specifically after that?
Yeah. It's. I think it's cheap to call anybody out. If you're going to come out of retirement, you should come out of retirement against somebody impressive.
Mm.
Regardless of whether or not it's a warm-up fight or not, you've been out for an extended period of time. You should still at least come back against somebody who's coming off of a win at bare minimum. Not somebody who's not loss, coming off of a devastating loss at his debut of a higher weight class, and he got his jaw broken in the process.
Yeah.
That's a lot of things that go against Gustafsson, in my opinion. Those are three no-nos when it comes to calling people out. It's kind of like having a 6-22 record.
I can't. I can't with you, man. I can't with
Anyway.
Inside joke, or maybe it's not an inside joke.
It might not be. I don't know. If anybody does their research.
Wow. Interesting. But, well, let's talk about Rockhold, man. Do you think, him, he was at 185 for the longest time. He was the champ at 185, right? He's
Mhm.
jumping up to 205. 20 pounds, but he was always kind of on the bigger end of 185 anyways. He was always on the bigger end of that. So what do you think it is for him to come in there light heavyweight? Like, what do you think he did or didn't do to prepare himself right for, for that extra 20 pounds?
That's a really tough question. If I had to make an assumption, it would probably be somewhere along the same things that I did. Going up to fight Julian, I focused on putting weight on and being as big and as strong as these guys, when the reality of the situation is my advantage would have been being faster and more agile and lighter on my feet. So I think when he spent the months or weeks or whatever, how much time he spent putting on that extra weight, he focused predominantly on being heavier, and that slowed him down. That took a lot of his advantages away. And when you're just as slow as these guys and you don't have the power behind it, you tend to get pushed around or get your jaw broken. These are the things that tend to happen in those situations. So if I had to make a guess, I would say that's probably what it is. He focused predominantly on gaining size as opposed to utilizing the advantages that he would have as being a smaller guy.
Well, tell me this. Speaking of, like you said, because you've gone up yourself, where's the line at between, okay, you've got the extra weight, maybe you have a little more power behind your shots, but maybe does the cardio suffer? Does the speed suffer? Where is the magical, fine line where everything's kind of like, okay, well, I'm at the heavier class, but I still have my cardio, I still have some of my speed, but like, how do you know? Do you kind of depend on your coaches to really be able, like, hey, man, maybe this ain't fucking working. You've slowed down a lot. Your cardio is shit now. Like, how do you do this? Who do you depend on?
Absolutely. Your coaches are going to be vital in that situation because they're the ones who see what you don't see. You're in there and you're putting in the work and you understand how you feel. And there are days that you feel good and days that you don't feel good. And even in the days that you don't feel good, people say you look impressive. In the days that you feel really good, people say, hey, man, you look kind of shitty that day. So it's really important to have that solid communication.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to a situation where you're trying to move up in weight, the biggest thing is going to be what weight you're naturally maintaining, in my opinion, because when you're moving up in a situation like Rockhold, if he's walking around at 210, he's got no business fighting at 205.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. I was walking around at like 170, 175. I've got no business fighting at 170. These guys are coming down from 185, 190, if not bigger sometimes. And that's a lot of weight to move around, regardless of how good shape you're in, regardless of how strong you are, how fast you are. When it comes, especially the MMA game, especially the MMA world, 15 pounds, even 10 pounds, even at heavyweight is a big difference. That's a lot of weight in the hips that you might not be able to be ready for. So yeah, I think it's definitely going to come down to your coaches, saying, hey, we tried, and maybe we need to give it 6 more months, or maybe we just need to stay where we're at and suffer through the weight cut and, eat a little less. Yeah, it comes down to communication with your team 100%.
Do you think that's more of an American thing? Because I've talked about this before. With one championship, they have very stringent guidelines on how much you can cut, right? How much water weight you can cut and stuff like that. It seems like there's a lot of other there are different sports in other countries that they fight closer to their natural weight, right? So like you said, if you're naturally at 170, you'll fight at 170, right? Like, do you think that's kind of a thing that we've built up, especially here in the States?
I think it's something we've kind of gotten away from. And the reason being, in my opinion, is because, and this might kind of sound, it's going to come off whatever way you want it to sound like. But as Americans, we tend to always look for the advantage in the situation.
Sure.
So we're going to strip as much weight off as we can. We're going to do everything in our power to have the advantage in the situation so that we can win. I think it's dangerous. I think a lot of people are cutting way too much weight. I think they're doing things. I think they're cutting weight the wrong way. But yeah, to answer your question, I think cutting weight and the drastic weight cuts is predominantly a Western thing. Most people tend to fight around their same weight class, and kind of go from there. At least is from what like you were saying, as far as other countries more foreign, especially like one championship, they've essentially eliminated the weight cutting situation. They do hydration testing, so you can not eat all you want. You're going to be weak. You're going to be fatigued. You need to maintain hydration. That's going to be the biggest part of it.
Fair enough. Guys, we're going to take a quick break. We got Juan the Kraken Adams kind of waiting in the wings here. We're going to bring him on. Give me 30 seconds, and we'll be right back with Juan the Kraken Adams.
Brett Bishop with Anstill Nutrition. And shout out to the Combat Insiders for allowing us the opportunity to introduce ourselves. We're a supplement company geared towards combat sports. We're designed with the fight in mind, so don't cut weight without us.
What's up, Mr. Adams? What's up, brother? How you doing, man?
Good, man. Chilling. Just got out of a workout, actually. So
I feel your pain.
yeah. Hands all crazy.
There you go. No, you're fine, bro. Hey, so we were just talking. We were talking about cutting weight and coming from a guy who has to cut weight to get to heavyweight. Like, how do you think, the whole cutting weight? I don't want to say fiasco, but it's different in the States, right? People want to try to cut as much weight as possible and put back on as much weight as possible. How do you approach it?
For me, I really just try and live a healthier lifestyle all around during camp. And from there, we see wherever I'm at. We like to be ideal for me is 285 2 weeks out. My last camp, I did the whole camp pretty much at 285. My body just responds like that's where I feel my most athletic is at 285. I like being 295, but all my coaches say I just move better and everything at 285. If they had a higher weight class, I'd fight in it. Honestly, I hate cutting weight, but it it goes along with the whole martial arts mantra of discipline. So that's what I put it to, and it's one of the brutalities of the sport. But if you do it right, you can use it to your advantage. If you have a smart team around you with a good nutritionist, and good coaches, you do your work the right way, it can be beneficial. But I've also been wrestling since I was 14, so it's a little different for me.
Interesting. I guess that is kind of that American wrestling mentality, right? It's kind of the same thing. It just kind of entangles with the way MMA fighters are in America with the weight cutting.
Right.
Interesting. Juan, like I was just telling Tom, there's a big week ahead of us, right? With UFC 242, Khabib and Poirier. I'd like to kind of get started. Let's talk about the co-main event and main event specifically. Paul Felder versus Edson Barboza. The first fight was probably one of the best fights of that year. That crazy spinning kick highlight to the groin of Barboza to Felder. And then, of course, Barboza winning the fight. But how do you guys see this going? What do you think? Is it going to be different this time around? They're both, I believe they are both with different camps than they were for the first fight. So it's kind of, essentially maybe even two different fighters coming into this versus the first time. What do you guys think about that?
I like Paul Felder in this one. I'm like the worst person to ask fight picks for because unless I don't know either of the fighters or I know one of them, I go with the one that's been nicer than me. So Paul and I, Paul was the announcer for my Contender Series fight, and we went up there. My debut was in Milwaukee, so Paul and I are pretty cool. But he has grown a lot as a martial artist since the last fight. And he's excited about it. So I really think he's going to win. But, that's friendship bias. There's certain guys I won't ever pick against.
Tom, what do you think, man?
I'll be honest with you, man. I don't know a whole lot about either one of these fighters. I haven't seen Felder fight in years, and I don't think I've seen Barboza fight since he lost to Khabib. I mean, I know they've both had plenty of fights since then, and they have had impressive victories and so on and so forth. But I haven't seen either one of them perform enough to really give you an educated opinion on it. If I had to make an assumption, I know that Felder's up at Duke Rufus right now, and Barboza's a monster striker. So this may very well come down to who's the better grappler, to be honest with you. You know, if Felder's at a striking camp, he could be just preparing for that high level striking, getting some shots off that he couldn't get off in the last fight, and then potentially, you know, maybe taking the fight to the ground, because we saw what happened when Edson gets put on his back, you know, and doesn't find a way to get up, can't find a way to get up. He tends to just give up. So if I had to make a very uneducated guess, that would be it.
Well, is it Edson has problems off his back, or Edson had a big eagle on top of him in the form of Khabib?
I think both are. Reasonable options. Nobody's getting up with Khabib on top of him. That's just not going to happen. But we've also seen Edson break on the bottom before. It wasn't just with Khabib. So I think that it's going to be, again, if I had to make an uneducated opinion on it, I think it's going to be a very technical striking match that could potentially turn over into a grappling competition, and that would make the difference in the fight, in my opinion.
Fair enough, guys. Moving along to the course, the main event, Khabib versus Poirier. Talking about Khabib is kind of irrelevant at this point. We all know how he got here. We last saw him against Conor. We all know how that went. No need to go over that. Poirier, he's coming off of the win against Max Holloway, who was the 145-pound champion, of course, as everybody should well know. But you know, it was an interesting fight, right? Because we're used to seeing Max control the pace. We're used to seeing Max press forward, and Poirier essentially kind of shut down any setups and any traps that Max Holloway is usually able to set. We saw Dustin Poirier do this to Gaethje. We saw him do it to Eddie. It's interesting, right? Because while Khabib is not known for his pressure in the striking department, he's known for his pressure in the grappling department. I guess coming from, you know, your guys' opinion, you guys are the experts as far as I'm concerned. What's the difference in between, other than the obviously grappling and striking, but in terms of, like, you're trying to set the pace, you're trying to set that bar with your grappling in Khabib's corner, then you have somebody like Dustin who is good at stopping the setups. Does it apply across the board to striking and grappling that Dustin's able to stop these setups?
I don't think so. I mean, people said the same thing about Conor. A lot of that is them trying to build intrigue for the fight. You know, there's a big difference in Max Holloway applying pressure to you and Khabib, you know.
Of course.
Holloway's not as big as Khabib. He's kind of a long, wiry fighter. Doesn't really pack a whole lot of power. Whereas, you know, Khabib's striking probably isn't on the same level of Dustin Poirier's, but he's got power, man. I mean, he knocked Conor down. Everyone thought that, you know, Conor striking would present a problem for Khabib, and it didn't. I mean, we saw how that fight went. Some people will argue that it was closer than it was, but I mean, he mauled him and then took him out. And Dustin's one of those guys hard not to like, though, you know. And a lot of people want Dustin to win, so they're letting the emotions kind of cloud the judgment on there. But though I do want Dustin to win, it's really hard to pick against Khabib ever. I mean, he's never lost. I mean, you know, and he does, like, everyone has known exactly what Khabib's going to do, and nobody's been able to stop it.
Agreed, but, well, let me ask you this. So in terms of, like I was saying, like with the setups with Khabib pressing forward, it's kind of hard to take people down if Dustin has you on your heels and you're walking backwards, right? Or like, am
No,
I just seeing that from a too much of an amateur perspective?
yeah, because when I fought Arjun Bueller, right? I was going forward the entire fight, right?
Yep. Yep.
I wrestled collegiately. I was Division 1, but
Right.
and I stopped it's on paper it says it's 2 takedowns or 2 for 2, but when we were in those clinches, I stopped a lot of those level changes
Yep.
before they got there to that point.
Yep.
But the fact that he just kept going to it, kept going back to the wrestling, I stopped 18 out of the 20 takedown attempts. He still got 2 of them in, and when he got there, he went down. When Khabib gets on top of you, man, you don't get up. And, I was a lot bigger and stronger than Arjun was. And the first time I got up, but in the third round, I couldn't, So I feel that, while Dustin will, keep going forward, keep putting you back on your putting them back on your heels, there's certain shots that sets up, If he's got you going backwards, it really opens you up to a double leg. It opens you up to a high crotch. It opens you up to a smash single, Whereas if Khabib's pushing forward on you, he's allowed to get a lot of those upper body style, a lot of Greco style takedowns. But if you're going backwards and being pushed back, you can use that momentum against them.
Tom, yeah, go ahead. Like, what do you think? What do you think the game plan is? What would be an optimal game plan for Dustin? Like you said, we all know what Khabib's going to do, and no one has still been able to stop it.
Right.
What do you think Dustin's strengths are against somebody like Khabib?
I don't know if it fits for Khabib specifically, but exactly what Juan was saying. When you're pressing forward, you have a tendency to run into takedowns. When you're trying to come forward with big shots and you're swinging heavy, people can get right underneath you and hit those takedowns. It's real easy to hit those double legs, those single legs, things along those lines. I think in order for Dustin to really have a chance in this fight, he has to use the 2 advantages that he has in this fight, and that's his size and his power. We know he can strike well. We know he has decent grappling, not great, not Khabib level grappling, but nobody does, Right. But he has good grappling. He has good wrestling defense. And he's got power in his hands. He stopped Gaethje. He stopped Alvarez. He can hurt people, but he has to fight from his range. He has to make sure that he doesn't rush forward, but he doesn't run away either. He has to have proper range and utilize his size, his takedown defense, and his power to really put Khabib on his heels, but not in the sense where he's running away, just to put him back so that he second guesses that shot. He second guesses coming in. He doesn't want to run into something heavy. So he's not as forwardly aggressive, tends to stay. When people are less forwardly aggressive, but you're not pushing forward either, it tends to be, people tend to kind of hang out in this range a little bit and test boundaries. If I had to take a swing at it, that would be my key to victory for Dustin, is using his power and his range properly and staying away from those takedowns. Because, like Juan was saying, once Khabib takes you down, you don't get back up. Plain and simple.
We saw in the Khabib Iaquinta fight. Now, granted, it was opponents were changed 80 times, but with Iaquinta, he's a very good, solid wrestler. Obviously not a better wrestler than Khabib, but he was good enough to stop some of the takedowns, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was enough, I think, to maybe second guess, right? Khabib maybe kind of second guessed a couple shots, and maybe a couple times he thought about going for the takedown. Maybe he's like, yeah, I don't know, maybe I don't want to get caught, because Iaquinta was the better striker. So, he goes stuff the takedown, pop, maybe gets caught coming back up.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that maybe Dustin could settle into? Like you said, Dustin doesn't have to out-wrestle Khabib.
Right.
But is his wrestling good enough to at least stuff a couple takedowns and maybe catch up on the way up?
I think it is. And I think that he's motivated enough to have the confidence behind him that once he gets one, he's like, okay, all right, I got this. I know I can do it again. that type of situation. But that's if he gets the one. Yeah, it's a tricky situation.
Interesting. Yeah, this is a tough fight because I don't want to sound like a broken record, but yeah, it's tough, right? Because of the strengths of Khabib and the strengths of Dustin, it just really makes an interesting fight. And a lot of people, I think, like Juan said, a lot of people want Dustin to win because at some point, right, you're the hype train. At some point, you keep winning, you're the hype train, everybody loves you, but then you win too much, and it's almost like people just want to see you get beat.
People
right?
want to see your downfall. It's that Mayweather syndrome, you know?
Yeah,
when you're
like
too good, people want to see you fail. I can understand that.
It's just a weird dichotomy, and we saw that everybody was loving Khabib coming up, and then just somewhere, I don't know, maybe like the last fight or so, it's like almost people want to start seeing him lose. Like, who can topple Nurmagomedov now? Who can topple him? And I think, like Juan said, a lot of people want to see Poirier, and maybe it is emotional. Maybe this is an emotional decision. Maybe they're playing off of, the good old country boy from Louisiana. They're kind of playing off that storyline, that kind of come up from nothing, like, scrapping and fighting for everything he had. It's a good story. Everybody likes that story.
Khabib's got the same story, though. Khabib's got an even harsher story. I mean, so it's like, if you could take it from a political perspective, you could say that he's the American good old boy who came from nothing, who fought for everything that he's wanted, so on and so forth. So that plays really well here, but Khabib is a national fucking hero. Like he hangs out with the president of Russia.
Right.
Like him and Putin are tight like fifth graders. Come on.
Right.
Like, come on, so he's the exact, you could take that exact same story and put it on Khabib in Russia or Kazakhstan or, whatever demographic you want to put it in. I think that we're just biased towards Dustin because he's from here. He's one of us, in the grand scheme of things.
You could be right. You could have a point. Well, what's next then? So, okay, let's just say whoever wins maybe is irrelevant to the next question. But what's next? Is Tony Ferguson, you think, the guaranteed next in line? We all know, I think Dana has said it, but I'm thinking if Gaethje and Cerrone, if let's just say they fight and it's a hell of a fight and one of them gets some sick ass finish, you think it's possible that Dana could be like, maybe.
I don't know. That's tough, man. Tony's been screwed over so many times that it almost feels like it's intentional at this point, But it comes down to
you also
health.
got to take into account, though, from a marketing perspective, like Tony isn't. I mean, you've heard him talk. He's a super talented fighter, but he's out there.
He's a little kooky. Yeah, he's a little kooky.
So a lot of people love watching him fight, but like me, like for instance, I love watching Tony fight, but whenever they hand him a mic, I'm just like,
I got you.
What is going on here? So that might be some of it, but also, I mean, but Khabib's kind of similar though. A lot of people can't understand a lot of the stuff that he says. But Connor's like one of a kind. He's lightning in a bottle. He's a marketing mastermind. So
yeah,
as much as people hate it, the dude sells, and that's what it's about right now. Is as much as we don't want to admit it, you're not going to get to the UFC these days unless they see some type of way to market you, or unless you market yourself very well. Every interview or every time they stick a mic in your face and there's cameras on you, you have to look at that as an opportunity to sell yourself and put yourself over. So while most of us just want to go in there and fight, get paid, do our thing, like you don't get those opportunities unless you talk a lot. And, it's not great, but ultimately in order to make the sport go more mainstream and ensure its survival over the years, you need athletes like that. And that might be some of why Dana's real hesitant to put Tony out there. Because, I mean, dude's out there, super talented fighter, but
yeah,
that is part of it. You just got to live with it, I guess.
Yeah, from a marketing's perspective, he's easy to sell as a fighter. He's hard to sell as a personality. I get that for sure.
Mm. Do you, well, let me throw this angle out there. You think he's so weird and so cringeworthy that it almost has, because he definitely has a cult following. Like he doesn't have that mainstream following like you said because he is a little weird, but he definitely has a cult following. There's a lot of the, I'm gonna put this in quotes, the hardcore MMA fans. You know, they love Tony. Is it maybe he's so weird? Maybe it almost makes him, and I use the word like attractive, obviously not, you know, physically, or maybe he is, I don't know, whatever. But like, do you think that maybe might have like a weird attractive feature to him because he is kind of cringeworthy?
You're
I think if
always
he
gonna
had
have.
a
Go
no,
for
go
it.
ahead, man. Go ahead.
You're always going to have people like that, though. You know, a lot, especially in America, right? We've got a lot of people that are like contrarians or want to be hipsters. So they're going to like the dude just because other people don't, you know? And the appeal of MMA, you know, you look at the early stages of it, most of those early fans are in that, you know, that weird part of society. So yeah, they're gonna like him. There's gonna be a cult following. Like the Diaz brothers were mega stars,
Yeah.
but you look at their records and you're kind of like, how, you know? But there's so yeah, there's always going to be a niche for everyone. I feel like Tony's market is a very niche market. Like I said, you know, you can find anyone and there's going to be fans of them. Like Cejudo's whole King of Cringe thing. That's going over really well with a lot of people that you wouldn't expect it. And, you know, you wouldn't expect, like, I see it. I was like, what the hell is this dude doing? This is weird. But, you know, then there are going to be those people that honestly only care about your fighting ability. They don't care about, you know, the on the mic stuff. They don't care about everything else. They just want to see good fights. But again, that's a very small percentage of people. So, you know, that's just my thoughts on it.
Yeah, that's a good point. You talk about Henry Cejudo, because I guarantee you every other person is gonna be like, "Oh no, it's stupid, it sucks, you know, it'll never get over." But they watch it. Every single one of them watch it. They'll be like, you know, maybe even kind of like they pretend like they're not watching it.
Feeling
You
one of
know,
these numbers.
they're like, "Oh man, this is terrible. This sucks. This is so bad. Oh man." You know, bend the knee, triple C, calling out Shevchenko and every damn. Come on, man. But it's, you know what? I like it. I kind of like the heels anyway. I've always been a heel mark. You know, when I was a wrestling fan, I was always a heel mark. I love the bad guys anyway. So, you know,
They're more fun, no doubt
it,
about that.
it is. You know what? Like the Colbys and the Cejudos, because I mean, it's a stick, man. Like if people don't see that and see through it, it's a stick. That's all it is.
Right.
And but like Juan said, it's necessary nowadays. It's necessary evil, unfortunately. But for this to keep moving forward, it's just the way it is. Go ahead, Tom.
And that's the thing that gets me about Ferguson, because I feel like outside of like Kale Sonnen, Ferguson like he looked like he was in the WWE. Like you give that guy a microphone and he's snatching off his sunglasses and getting real serious. Like he did that for an extended period of time. And for whatever reason, maybe it was too WWE, it was too animated or fictitious or whatever, and it kind of threw people off. So I don't know. I think that to go back to what you were saying beforehand about his small market or his niche market, I think if he marketed himself, maybe he needs to market himself more outside of the UFC, do more like social media and things like that, and actually kind of build that following and not rely on the UFC to market him. And then maybe he'd be more of a household name and not such a what's the word I'm looking for here? Not just locked into the hardcore fans.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. Ferguson's he's had his moments where he's really tried to sell himself and be that character, and for whatever reason, it just hasn't worked out for him. It's kind of unfortunate.
I think one of those things is when you do a character or anything like that, you know, even with because when I had my WWE tryout, one of the big things they said is, you know, the people that are super successful at that are the ones that can really sell it and make it believable. So you take one aspect of your personality, you crank it up to 11, right?
Yeah.
So when you try to cling to something that's not the authentic you too much, you can only put that facade up for so long. And
Noticeable.
people don't typically like the ones that they feel are trying too hard to be liked, you know?
I got you. That makes sense.
So to a lot of people, you know, he comes off as a try hard. You know, my biggest thing where I found most success is like I'm a goofy dude and I like weird stuff that most people wouldn't expect someone that looks like me to like. And another thing is I really don't care all that much what people think of me. So I'm going to do what I like to do regardless of what people like or not. And that's refreshing to a lot of people. With Tony, it just seemed like for that time, it seemed like he was trying way too hard. And even the Cejudo thing, you know, I feel like for a while people were like, he's trying too hard, I guess. But then they're like, oh, wow, he really is. This is
Right.
Oh, he's committed.
so he's really committed to it, or he's legitimately this cringy of a person.
I mean, he
Probably
kind of
both.
has to be at this point now, right? If he backs out
Right.
now, it's kind of
Right.
like he's kind of screwed. He's kind of screwed himself. He has to commit fully, you know, challenging all the women's champions and stuff like that. So he's kind of stuck. Let's move on from the main event. Well, I guess real quick, picks real quick. Juan,
Yeah.
what's your pick? Poirier or Khabib?
Khabib. I want Poirier to win. Let me go on record. I want Poirier to win, but I think Khabib will.
What do you think? Decision? You think it's ground and pound? Maybe TKO or?
I think it's either going to be ground and pound or a fourth or fifth round submission.
Okay. Tom?
I am going to play the long shot here and say Dustin TKO round 3. Why not? Let's see what happens.
I don't
think anybody's gonna die if I'm wrong, so we'll see what happens.
I think Dustin gets it done. I think he wins by decision. I think maybe Khabib might be a little bit because of his grappling. Dustin's going to have. He's not going to be able to feel comfortable enough to commit, but so much like you guys were talking about earlier with his pressure. But I think he's going to be able to commit enough to keep Khabib from using his pressure, and I think maybe he's going to win by just pot shotting him the entire fight and maybe winning by decision. That's my prediction.
Certainly plausible.
Let's move on, and something that may be near and dear to Mr. Juan Adams' heart over here. What do you think about this whole thing with Rumble coming back at heavyweight?
Fuck it, make that money, I feel like he went out, and it's weird. You set your heart on something and you go for it, you pursue it that much. I feel that in the heat of that moment, he might have been down, when he lost to DC.
Yeah.
And he retired because he might have truly felt there was nothing left for him in that sport. And, I've experienced that myself numerous times in life where you're done with trying so hard, doing everything right, giving your all to something, and you come up short. You get just there, but you come up short and you never get that thing that you were trying to obtain. And you got to step back from it for a while and realize if it's something you really still want to do, and I knew a UFC return was coming for him because he had said something about bare knuckle, blah, blah, blah. So he's still got the itch to compete. But when you go and you have to commit so many chunks of time, continuously to living that regimented of a lifestyle to make weight, cutting weight, training, putting in the hours to go for it, and then you come up short. And then on top of that, you got to deal with, constant feedback from people, constant input, it wears on you. And myself, after my last fight, I had to take 6 weeks off. I went to the gym. I would go there, and I'm just like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this right now. I went from training, 4 to 5 times a day to going in once and being like, I'm done for the day. Today, was the first time I just randomly got the itch to go do a workout. So I worked out 3 times today, but I'm just now getting back to the point where I could get back to that grind and really push forward on it. But when my 5th year of college, I went back my 5th year just to wrestle. I did everything I was told. I did extra work in the off season. I did extra work outside of the 2 practices that I was doing today. I had my coaches put together an extra practice of just heavyweights for me throughout the week. I went back and I dropped a class to compete my 5th year. So I only needed to pass 1 class that entire year to graduate. All I was there for was wrestling. And, I was number 1 seed at conference and I choked. I didn't get to go to nationals. And, to pursue something that hard and not get it. So for him pursuing a championship that hard and not getting it, I understand taking an extended break from it. And if he's happy doing that, yeah, he's earned the right to, come back and see if he still has it in him. And with his power, anything can happen. So he's a legit contender for it. He's proven that he can compete at the highest level in, 3 different weight classes now? So this will be a 4th one for him. I'm interested to see who he's matched against. I'm interested to see who he wants to fight and how he does at this level. I'm not ever going to have to fight him, so I don't care. I feel like he'll be done by the time I'm ranked up there. So.
Well, it's hard to, and maybe I'm way off base here, and maybe I don't really have a place at the table to really say anything, but when guys kind of step away, and there's something that Dana says a lot, and I think he says, when guys start thinking about retirement, maybe they should retire, right? And with Rumble's case, you could see with that second Daniel Cormier fight, it was almost like he just gave up, man. Like it's like he wasn't there. He wasn't there the entire fight. He wasn't Rumble. He wasn't Rumble Johnson going into that fight. It was just like once he got pinned up against the fence and DC started grinding on him, he was kind of like, man, fuck this. Like it's just not, fuck it, right?
I can touch on that personally. All right, I shouldn't say personally. With intent. I had the pleasure of talking to Rumble when I was in Philadelphia for the bare knuckle tryouts many moons ago. And we had talked about his last 2 fights against Daniel Cormier.
Yeah.
And I don't want to put words in his mouth, but the vibe that I got from it was he fought DC once, didn't do as well as he wanted, but didn't want to fight him again. He wanted John Jones. That was the vibe that I got. He was into the John Jones fight. And then they gave him DC again, and he was just like, fuck. And the vibe that I got was he lost motivation. Like you said, he just wasn't there. He wasn't Rumble. He was just kind of going through the motions. And I think that was when he decided, okay, if I can't have the best in the world, if I can't be the best in the world, I'm not going to fight anymore. Took a step back, and it had been about 1.5 years at that point. And he told me he hadn't been in the gym once. He had been focused on powerlifting. He's walking around at 200, damn near 300 pounds, like just a monster of a man. But he wasn't interested in it. That was in Philadelphia. When I saw him in Biloxi just a few weeks ago, he seemed like a fire had lit back underneath him. Like something was in the works and he was ready to get back into it and start doing something again. But yeah, I think 100% Dana was right in the sense that when you're starting to think about retire, depending on your age and depending on your mileage, it might be time to retire.
Right.
I also think that Rumble's neither has the age or the mileage. He had terrible time with cutting weight, but fighting at heavyweight, I don't think that's going to be an issue for him. And once he starts actually training again, starts walking around under 265, weight cutting is not going to be an issue. He's just going to go out there as a natural Anthony Rumble Johnson and ruin people. That's my opinion on the situation.
I mean, well said by both of you guys. I can't even. There's really nothing to follow up on. That's well said. Man, I hope he comes back for the right reasons. You know, that's all I hope. I hope he comes back for the right reasons. And you know, I get it too. I get it. It's also a payday. A lot of people want to see Rumble. He's still a big draw. You know, you throw Rumble in a pay-per-view, and people are going to buy the pay-per-view to see him. You know, he's always kind of had a. I don't know what it is. Man, I don't want to use the word mystique. That sounds kind of cliche, but it's just always been.
He's just a murderer. I think mystique is a very good word because he does things that seem to defy logic. He hits people and just shuts them down. It's mind-boggling. And to think that he's soon to be doing it at heavyweight, close to 265 pounds, depending on how much weight he has to pull to make the weight class. And he used to do that almost 100 pounds less.
Right.
The guy used to fight at 170 pounds. And he murdered people. And now he's doing it at heavyweight, almost 100 pounds heavier. It's just mind-boggling. There absolutely is a mystique to him that people are just drawn to. I feel like super athletes have that. He's definitely one of those.
Juan, I'd like to maybe kind of like to follow up on what you're talking about, man. You know, of course, you know, the last fight obviously didn't go the way you wanted to, but what's next for you, man? Like, are you just kind of want to take some time and, like you said, just kind of like build on yourself a little bit before you even think about anything official, or like what do you think your timetable is?
I mean, I'm kind of at their mercy at this point. You know, I got one more fight on my contract. You know, I think my biggest thing right now is I do want to fight again, obviously, but it's got to be done right. You know, down here I have 0 training partners. You know, it's not, and the way I fight, you know, that wouldn't be an issue if I had, you know, Derek Lewis type power in my right hand, just in the fight with one punch. But I don't have that. You know, for whatever reason, I don't have it. Yeah. Also,
I know the feeling. It's okay.
The other thing people got to understand is, you know, I haven't been training MMA a long time. You know, I started training January of 2016. My amateur debut was September 10th of 2016. My pro debut was June 24th of 2017. You know,
Wow.
So I've got 7 pro fights now, 11 fights total. I'm still learning, you know, my style of fighting. I'm still learning, you know, what I like and what I don't like in this sport. And when you go from, you know, this feeling of you can't lose to losing 2 in a row, no matter if I want to fight right now or not, I'm forcing myself to take some time and reevaluate stuff, because the way I'm running camps, the way I'm doing things isn't working for me right now. As much as I want to say it's my fault in execution, I also have to look at other things and look at other variables. And, you know, I need to be at a bigger camp. I need to be with other heavyweights who are on my level. I can't be able to go in and win every sparring match whenever I feel like it. That's not a good training environment. And, you know, comfort is detrimental to growth, and I'm too comfortable where I'm at right now. So I need to grow as a martial artist. I need to grow as an athlete before I step back in the octagon. And luckily, you know, I'm at a point where I can do that. I can take that time and really devote it, because, you know, this next fight could be my last fight in the UFC. So I'm going to go out there and I'm going to treat it that way. You know, I have to prove once again that, you know, I'm worthy of being there. And so, you know, that's where my head's at right now. And, you know, I also have to eliminate a lot of stuff from my life. You know, there's a lot of things that cause me anxiety and stress and things like that. And a lot of guys fight because they feel like they don't have any other options, right? For me, it's like, okay, I've pretty much reached a high level with everything that I've tried in life. I got my degree in computer science. I have a minor in exercise science. I was working at a bank. I was a loan coordinator within 6 months of working there. When I was working in nightclubs, in the span of 3 months, I went from being just a bouncer to managing nightclubs. So it's one of those things where, like, I know I have a bunch of options, and I felt like I wasn't really committed to one thing too much. Yeah, I was training a lot because I enjoyed it. I wanted to see how good I could get. But, when you lose two straight from going off of, nothing but wins, it rattles you a little bit. And I had to go back in there, and I'm not going to commit to a fight until I know 100% that I put myself in the best possible position to win that fight. When I was fighting before I got to the UFC, I knew I was in a better position than anyone else just because I was more athletic. I knew I was going to be at a higher level than anyone else that I stepped in the cage with. And now, I'm assuming that at worst everyone is at my level. So it's hard. It's a big shift going from where you're clearly the better guy every time to you might be the worst guy, when you get in there. So yeah, just learning that, relearning everything, starting over. Luckily, I'm only 27, so I can do that. But we'll see.
Juan, I hope you don't mind me asking this, man. It's okay if you don't want to answer it, but and I'm with all due respect, because obviously, the last fight with Greg Hardy, you asked for this fight for a long time. That was the fight you wanted, and like you said, it didn't go your way. That does, because you called him out for so long, you think, does that weigh on you any extra, or does that part even play a part?
Yeah, it does weigh on me a lot extra, especially the fact that, when the fight was stopped, I wasn't taking damage. I've never had a fight stopped in that position before. I've never, I felt that, the fight should have gone on.
Yeah.
And, for me, for a fight to be stopped, that person needs to be damaged. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that weighs on me a lot. The fact that I asked for it for so long, I got the fight, and then for it to, if it had been a 15-minute war and I had lost, I'd have been fine with that. And, I would have been back in the gym next week. But the fact that it was in a minute, when you devote months of your life to something and to have it decided in a minute like that, it sucks. So that weighs on me a little bit, but it also made me look at, the way I'm training. He's at American Top Team, surrounded by better guys all the time. They game plan. They looked at it. They put him in the best possible position to win. Down here, I'm having to beg on Facebook to get people to come train with me. It's a big difference. So all of that, why would I go into another fight camp in these same conditions where I'm having unsure about training partners? I have maybe 3 legitimate guys that really push me in training, but they're so inconsistent in showing up. I'm not going to risk that again. So
This might be an inconsiderate question. I don't mean to cut you off, but what being a UFC athlete, fighting at the highest level, what is stopping you from moving somewhere where you can get high level training consistently? Because like you said, if you're the best guy in the gym and you're going in and winning every sparring session, like, let's be honest, you're at the wrong gym, plain and simple. So what is it that's prohibiting you or not allowing you to go out and venture out and get the training that you need, get the partners that you need, and get the structure that you need?
Nothing was prohibiting me, but I felt that, one, I was very loyal to, a group of people that got me there. I wanted to take the same people that got me there all the way to the top, and nobody does that. And also, I take care of my family down here. The reason I came back to Houston in the beginning was because my mom was battling cancer, and so I stayed down here to make sure, I kind of took over all the bills. I took over, the day-to-day stuff and a lot of aspects for a lot of different members of the family. But now I'm at a point where, I can do it. So I've already decided the camp that I'm going to. We've already put it in motion. It's
Awesome.
just a time thing now. Once I had already committed to 2 jobs down here, coaching high school football, but once their season's over, I'm going to go up there for a few weeks. And then once wrestling season's over, I'm going to start going up there for a month at a time. So we've got it. We're looking at probably a return February, March at the earliest. So that can give me time to go up there for at least 2 or 3 week to 1 month sessions at Jackson Wing.
Very cool. Very exciting. Very exciting. Well, that's good, man. Especially when you're in that position in your career where, like you said, you're running on 2 losses now, and you're at a make or break point, and you really have to. I think that you've taken the right steps in understanding the situation that you're in, understanding the importance of going out there and performing like you deserve to be there, like that you do. And you're taking the proper steps to get you in that position. It's really important, especially this early in your career, man. That's awesome. Good for you.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate your candor, man. I mean, Tom said it, man. I wish you nothing but the best, Juan, man. And you could tell, bro, you train your ass off. And you know what? I mean, I guess the only, maybe, non-educated advice I could give is do what's best for you, man. I mean, that's the only thing I could tell you. Do what's best for you. You have a ton of fucking talent, man. Like you said, you're so young, man. You're young enough. You haven't even reached your peak, and that's scary. That's scary
For
that
sure.
you haven't
For
reached
sure.
your peak. It really is, bro. And man, just do what's best for you. Do what's best for your family. You know what, man? That's like my loyalty. When people talk to me about loyalty, my loyalty is to my family. That's it. That's the only loyalty. That's it, man. And do what's best for you and your family. So,
For sure.
100%, man. Well, guys, Mr. Juan, we appreciate your time so much, man. Appreciate your candor so much, man. It was I just wow. I love your story, man. Really, I love your story. And Mr. Tom Shoaff, as always, we appreciate your time.
Happy to be here.
We'll be seeing him probably again very shortly.
Hopefully,
And guys,
real soon.
Thanks for checking us out. If you could, smash the like button, smash the share button, hit the subscribe button, and we appreciate it so much. For Juan the Kraken Adams, for Tom Shoaff, I'm Joshua Furs. We are Combat Insiders. And we are out.
Have a good one, everybody.